Hello and welcome to Marketing Speak. I'm your host, Stephan Spencer, and it's my distinct pleasure to have Fred Joyal with us. Along with a lucrative career in advertising and marketing, he co-founded the most successful dentist referral service in the country, 1-800-DENTIST. He's written 2 books on marketing, a new personal development book called Super Bold. He's dabbled in stand-up and improv comedy, acted in bad movies and excellent TV commercials, and visited over 44 countries around the world. Fred, it's so great to have you on the show.
It's great to be here, Stephan. As a co-metal man, I say former because we don't meet physically anymore, and you've moved to a different part of the country. But it's always great to hang out with a metal man.
Yes, yes. So for our listener who is not familiar with what we're talking about, Metal is a mastermind. I've spoken about occasionally on episodes, but it stands for Media Entertainment Technology Alpha Leaders or Artist Leaders now. I think they changed it. But it's an incredible men's group of movers and shakers, and we meet every Saturday on Zoom now instead of in person. And there are a whole bunch of other groups that meet every week at different times. In fact, there's like a Wim Hof breathing group. So we do Wim Hof breathing in the mornings. Join that when I can. I actually had my own show on Tuesdays. I just got too busy. I had to drop it, but I'd have metal guys show up asking for SEO advice and conversion advice. That was fun. Yeah. So it's a great group, and it's great to have met you through metal. And I've met some amazing people through metal who have become friends, have become clients or strategic partners. I met Jay Abraham through metal, and we've become great friends. I met Dave Asprey through metal, and he's actually a client. And I also consider him a friend too. So there are such amazing connections to be found in metal. I highly recommend it for men only. It's a men only group. But yeah, how long have you been in metal for?
Ken and I figured out it's just over 15 years now.
Wow,
Yeah,
you are a veteran.
yeah.
You must have been one of the founding members along with
I think
Ken.
it was probably the first 2 years. Originally, it started out as a couple of small dinners, but eventually it got into a little bit bigger of a Saturday event. And I actually met Ken at the TED conference in Long Beach because he was having a live stream of it to a hotel room for 2 days. And so somebody Ryan Kaltman, one of the members of Metal at the time, said, "You got to meet Ken. You got to come do this." And so it's as you say, I can't even keep track of how many great relationships and opportunities have happened, and just fun and really amazing guys to learn from and share with. It's been very, very rewarding. I'm
Yeah.
immeasurable.
Yep. Do you know that metal actually saved one of my family members' lives?
No, how did
Yep.
that happen?
So I was on a Zoom breakout. This was in the early part of the pandemic. I met Mark Nelson, who is an ad copy writer and also a psychic medium. And at the time, I didn't really buy into the whole psychic thing. I was still somewhat skeptical about it, but I don't know. I felt like I had to have him on my podcast, but not on this show, on my other personal development show on Get Yourself Optimized. And it just so happened while I was interviewing him, the family member, for her privacy, I won't name who it is, but she was having a stroke, and she didn't believe it. She was refusing to go to the hospital, and she didn't live anywhere near us, so we couldn't like force her. We just had to try and talk to her about it. But while I was interviewing him, my wife Ryan came in and slipped a piece of paper to me, asked me to ask him if she was having a stroke, and she was. And he confirmed it and said, "This is what's going to happen if she doesn't go to the hospital." So she was indeed having a stroke, and that saved her life.
Wow.
I know.
Yes, it's not often you have a psychic when you need one like that.
Unless that's how it works. I don't know. It was
Yeah, I guess so. He knew he was supposed to be there. So,
well,
yeah.
I mean, what are the odds that I cleared my calendar? I was in the process of moving from LA to Miami or to Florida at the time. We weren't actually settled on Miami just yet, but we were ready to getting ready to move. And for whatever reason, I felt like I had to have him on urgently. That was the only podcast episode that I scheduled for a whole 3 week time period, and it just so happened to be at the perfect moment where he confirmed what we needed to know so that we could
And that
take
was
immediate action.
persuasive enough to get her to go to the hospital.
Well,
Interesting.
it persuaded my wife enough that she begged and pleaded enough to get the desired action out of the family member. Yeah, pretty amazing.
That's great. That's amazing.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, so love metal. I would love to hear a bit more about your origin story for the sake of our listener who's not familiar with you and with your story, the 1-800 dentist story. They probably have heard of 1-800 dentist, but let's assume that they haven't.
Yeah, we haven't been on the air for a long time. I started as an ad copywriter. I was working in an LA agency and really loved it. Loved the ad business, but didn't like the career arc of it at all because it swoops up and you make a lot of money, and then all of a sudden they lay you off at 50 years old and you can't get a job ever again. Because they say we can get 5 people for what we pay you, and they're young and hungry and got new ideas. And so I was watching it happen, and I said, well, I don't want that to happen to me. So I need to start my own business. Also, was not a personality wise, I'm not a great employee. So owning my own business made a lot of sense. And a friend of mine and I just got together. We knew another guy who had 1-800 dentist as a phone number, and he licensed it to us. We didn't know what the heck was going to happen. We just knew we wanted to try it. And we found 20 doctors in LA. I wrote some radio spots. We ran them, set up a little call center. This was 1986. And we got 50 phone calls the first day and went just like, holy crap, this is actually going to work. And so we just spent more money in media, added more doctors, added more cities, and just grew and grew and grew and grew to the point where we were doing about $50 million a year. And over the course of the 30 years I ran it, it generated like $1 billion of revenue. Somebody, a guy that we both know, Sanyika, says, how much money did you generate over the course of the whole business? And I just calculated it out, and I went, it's like $1.1 billion. And he went, you're the $1 billion man. He says, how many people do you think have even seen $1 billion? And I said, I never really looked at it that way. It was just the most successful referral service in the country. And we lived off of broadcast television. And I was in probably 100 of the commercials. I was the face of the industry. Then I wrote a couple of books on dental practice marketing because a lot of the doctors didn't know what to do with the patients once we gave them to them. They would waste them because they didn't know how to create a great patient experience or do any of the other marketing they needed to do. And then finally sold that in decline. Google pretty much disintermediated us in our final years, and which we fought them off for a long time, and we actually gave them a ton of money. There was they would have meetings with us and say, we're trying to put you out of business, but we love your business. And we were paying $500,000 a month for clicks from them and monetizing it. But the doom was written large on the wall. But it was great. 30 years is a long cycle to run a business. Yeah. And so aside from that, I started to get really interested in this whole concept of boldness and the impact it can have on your life, because I looked at the impact it had on mine, being a very shy and underconfident person growing up, and wondering why the hell bold people behaved the way they did and why they didn't experience rejection the way I did, or they didn't perceive failure as anything other than just something to learn from. And they just had great lives. And I said, I got to figure out how to do this because I'm missing tons of opportunities and stacking up regrets. So I gradually taught myself. And then years later, talked to a group of high school students in this mentoring group. And I said, boldness is a superpower. It will change the trajectory of your life. And they said, okay, how? How do we do it? How do we become bolder? I know I'm underconfident. I know I'm shy. I'm whatever. I'm inhibited. I'm frustrated. I'm insecure. What do I do? So eventually, I started making notes on it. And then eventually, during 2020, I finished the book and then published it in 2021. And that has become my MTP, is to help people live bolder, more adventurous, more fulfilling lives.
Mm-hmm. So MTP, let's define that for our listener in case they're not familiar with massively transformational purpose. Mine, by the way, is to elevate the consciousness of humanity. So it's a big laudable goal that may seem insurmountable, but you take it on anyway. So
Well, that's why it's massive and
yeah,
transformative. It's got to be fairly big. Uh, I want to make it a bolder world. I want people to live bolder lives, because bolder people are the ones who make a difference. Your boldness in having that MTP that you have, it's an extremely bold, laudable goal that you have, but you're going to make a huge difference because of it, rather than saying, well, I'm going to try to get people to buy more cars. you know uh, maybe buy more electric cars might be elevating that goal, but you have to challenge yourself. You have to reach for the stars if you want to at least get to the moon.
yeah. Well said. Well said. So are you part of Abundance 360? Is that how you found out about the MTP concept and the moonshot concept?
I am not a part of Abundance, but I have been to a few of the events and listened to Peter Diamandis several times, and uh, you know, love the university, the Singularity University stuff, and Stephen Kotler's books as well. Uh, all great stuff. And
Yes.
I think even Tim Ferriss talks about it as well. But the MTP is really something that came out of Abundance 360 and Singularity. That, like, we gotta aim big.
That's right. Yeah. And then the moonshot follows from that, where you're identifying some big project to work on that helps you move towards that MTP, or is directional. Uh, and that is something that is more kind of project based. And yeah, I'm curious. Did you define a moonshot for yourself or your business?
The moonshot for me is to have this book become a worldwide bestseller, and allow me to do uh, workshops all over the world, accelerating people's growth. So, and it's important, that it's great that you bring that up, because you can have this great lofty goal, but if you don't have any steps towards it, all you have is a lofty goal. You have a great thing written on the wall somewhere, but you gotta say, okay, what am I going to execute daily to get towards it? And it
Hmm.
takes a series of moonshots to get there.
Yeah.
Those are the
Yeah.
things that are going to really pull you. That goal pulls me every day. If I'm looking at my day every time in the morning, I say, how am I moving this closer to that? How am I attracting more of an audience? It's why I'm doing podcasts. It's why I'm on this, is to get to people and create an awareness about it.
Hmm.
uh, you have to do stuff every day. What you do
Yeah.
every day is what aggregates.
Yep. That's right. And do you feel like the universe conspires to make your dream, your big moonshot, uh, real and attained, or does it just feel like a bunch of kind of hard work and uh, sweat of the brow stuff that makes it work?
It's I think you've probably experienced this too, but a lot of times you put a tremendous amount of energy in one direction, and it spins the flywheel like 1 degree, and then something comes out of the blue and spins it 15.
Hmm.
That was just totally unexpected. But I've come to believe it's because I'm pushing so hard here that the universe goes, all right, throw them a bone. Give them something here. And it happened to me over the weekend, just by getting into conversations. People, this woman that I've known 30 years, she says, "Oh, my daughter-in-law has this big podcast for young people, whatever. You should get on it. I'm going to give her your book." It's like, I was at a memorial for somebody else. There was nothing to do with me promoting anything. We were just got in this conversation. And, as you're trying to always get good guests on your podcast, and probably be on good podcasts as well. But the really good ones are hard to get on, and you need a gateway. And this just comes out of the blue with me. I've done 90 podcasts promoting the book at this point.
That's a lot.
And yeah,
not quite as many as John Lee Dumas. I think he takes the record there. I think he did 300 or something. That was crazy.
Yeah, well, I'm rolling along. I'm not stopping, but because every one of them, I get a little better. My message gets a little clearer. My audience gets a little wider. So it's most of life is a battle of inches, but every once in a while, there's a Hail Mary pass that gets caught to carry the football metaphor all the way through.
Right, and these Hail Marys come out of nowhere.
But I think it's what's in your mind that makes it
this
real, that makes it happen.
In The Alchemist, it's kind of framed as the universe conspires to bring your personal legend to reality, and if you're in active pursuit of that personal legend, that big moonshot, then the universe is going to conspire to bring that into fruition. But if you're sitting on your couch binge watching Netflix, and it's the law of attraction doesn't work that way. So did you ever read the Alchemist?
Yeah, I mean, it's so much aligned with what I've seen to be true once I committed to that mindset, and to that. It's really a lot of it is just behavior. It's just, what do you think is going to happen if you just hope for it? It's good to have that mindset, a good positive mindset, but hope is not a plan.
For sure. And do you know that book was written in 12 days?
And apparently he hates writing. He says it takes him all day to get started every day. It's like he says, I do everything I possibly can to not sit down and start writing. And then he creates these amazing things. But yeah, and he just poured it out.
150 million copies sold.
I hope to do 1% of that.
I hope
that would be amazing
to do 1% of that as well. Yeah, amazing. So something I wanted to let's kind of deconstruct for our listener. What is the process for doing a successful campaign, whether it's for a book or a launch of a new brand like 1-800-Dentist, or a movie, whatever it is that you're involved in? Let's take your book as your latest book as the example. What would be the real needle movers for your for selling books of Super Bold? Like, you could do a book trailer, you could do podcasts, obviously, you can do some sort of collaborations with other YouTubers and influencers. You could start your own podcast. Like, there are many, many different things that you could do. I'm curious what you found are the biggest needle movers, and what is on your to-do list or wish list that you believe to be big needle movers.
Well, that all of marketing is trying to find a way to get to be top of mind, at least for a few minutes, with the right audience. That is the essence of what we're always trying to do. With books now, because there are so few bookstores, and here's a little known fact: the airport, which is the primary functioning bookstore at this point, those books that you see displayed, that they are facing forward, the publisher is paying for that space. They are essentially breaking even on those books for the display, because for every person that buys a book, 400 have seen the book. So it's display advertising that they're paying for, because most people aren't going to buy the hardcover anyway. I sell 20 times more digital versions of my book than I do the hardcover. Maybe more than that. Maybe 35 or 40 times more, because that's how people read. They read digitally or they listen to the book. And so, which means what? You have to have the audible version of it, or you're missing a huge segment of your audience. But podcasts are the number one way to get the word out on your book now. And so you have to be constantly out there talking about it with all different audiences that are aligned. I mean, you don't get on, if you have nothing to do with auto mechanics, you don't get on the engineer podcast. It doesn't make any sense. But so find that audience. There's 3.5 million podcasts. You should be able to find some that have an audience that aligns with whatever your message is. And then you've got to back it up by building your brand wherever you can. Do some keynotes. Do them at YPO, or Young Presidents Organization, or Entrepreneurs Organization, or your local Toastmasters. And then you got to have a social presence. Of course, you have to have an extraordinary website that talks about who you are, why this message is so important, and a fully developed website with video and all sorts of content. I don't have to, obviously we could do 2 hours on what's wrong with your website right now for most people. But your digital presence has to be comprehensive on the website and the social media side, so that the old rule of advertising still applies. They have to see you or hear about you 5 to 10 times before it even registers. People will come off of a podcast, go and say, "What? That was great." Fred Joyal. What was his name again? And they search Fred Joyal, they can't find me, so they give up. So you gotta, it's advertising has always been a moving target, but now it's moving about 10 times faster than when I started in the business. So you have to be listening. Does LinkedIn work? Maybe for you. Does TikTok work? Maybe for you. But when I was advising dentists, I would say, pay no attention to Instagram. I was saying this 5 years ago. I don't say that now. I say you must be on Instagram, because stuff changes. Nothing is static in the advertising world.
Yeah. Now you said videos. What about YouTube, and what about having videos on your site that are conveying an experience? And a great example of that is the book trailer for the book Open Book, which is the book by Jessica Simpson. I love that book trailer. It is the gold standard for book trailer videos. And I don't know if she's getting a lot of views or watch time for the version on YouTube, but I would imagine that it's very successful on the book section of her website. When people go to check out her book, it's very convincing, very compelling content. Gives a real sense of who she is and what the value proposition of the book is, and it really builds rapport and relatedness, and empathy and interest. Yeah. Do you have any examples?
I have a video. I have a video for my book on my website, but now I'm obviously going to have to redo it after I watch hers. But that's the other thing is never get married to your content like it's done. It's always a work in progress. It can always get better. It will get stale faster than you think. So get outside feedback. don't just ask your friends, ask experts who go, yeah, I know you're in love with it, but it's terrible. And here's the 6 reasons why, and take the feedback. That's one of the aspects of boldness that I talk about. Is it takes boldness to invite feedback, but that's how you get better.
Right.
Self-critique is hard. It's like trying to edit your own book. At a certain point, you got to hand it to an editor, and the editor fixes it.
Well, what if
But
the
it's
feedback
true of
is
everything. But
I don't love your Audible version? Like you have to re-record the whole thing then, give it to a different narrator? By the way, did you narrate your own book, or
yeah,
did you hire somebody?
yeah. But I've done that with all 3 books. But I have a good voice, and if you do have a good voice, you know what you want to emphasize in the book. So, and you can even re-edit the book as you go, because people are listening. I'm listening to Brene Brown's new book, Atlas of the Heart,
Hmm.
and she, throughout the book, she is stopping and saying, if you were reading the book, I'd know you would probably go back and read this again. So I'm going to repeat it slowly. And she just repeats herself. Some key points, she just repeats them. When you're listening, it's just fantastic. It's her book. She can do whatever the heck she wants. And it works so well. So I learned that before I recorded mine. So I would shift the book and the book content for a listener versus a reader.
Yeah.
My book is
One of my
full of
favorite
exercises.
examples of that is Mike Michalowicz. His book Profit First. He has all these amazing sidebars. He's reading his own book, but he's not in a just narrator mode. He's chiming in and saying, and by the way, here's something that I was thinking about when I was writing that, and blah blah blah. Like, it was amazing, all the different
Yeah,
sidebars.
you can fully editorialize it, and why not? I remember Jim Collins when he had recorded Great by Choice. He's got all these graphs in the book. He just describe. He says, "I know you can't see him, so let me describe it." And he would create a visual image of the graph, because how the heck are you gonna? You can't just read the content and say figure 1. It doesn't help.
Yes. Download all the figures at blah 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 blah.
Right. Get your PDF. I know you're driving, but download the PDF.
Right. Another thing that is really clever is to get uh, somebody really remarkable, distinguished, distinctive to do the narration. Like, for example, the Alchemist, which we talked about a few minutes ago. Jeremy Irons, the actor, is the narrator for that, and he's phenomenal. It made
Yeah.
it so entertaining to listen to the audible version of that book.
Yeah. Why not? If you're going for a bestseller, one of the things that's going to make it sell is that great reader. And I know really good books with really subpar readers for the audiobook, just borderline annoying. And you just say, oh, this is so bad, because I know how good this book is, but somehow they didn't want to read it themselves, and so the publisher hired this person to do it, and they were just wrong.
Yeah.
It never ignore it. Look at what's growing. What's shrinking is the hardcover. What's shrinking is the analog version of your book. The digital version and the audible versions are what's accelerating.
Yeah. Yeah. And speaking of the digital version, did you price your Kindle version at 99 cents or 2.99 or something, so much cheaper than the paperback or hardcover?
Yeah, I mean, unless you're trying to make all your money on books, which I don't recommend as a career, uh, then if you want your book out there, the beauty of the Kindle or a digital version is you can price it at $1, and so you make a quarter. Big deal, but you got it out there. And I did that, and I did a marketing push that was in part because of the price, and it pushed the book up to number 4 for a week on the Wall Street Journal bestseller list. just
Nice.
because I did a massive marketing blast, but it was also because it was a buck. So I get the bestseller bragging rights, which is in a way is a calling card. I mean, you
Yeah.
probably wouldn't have had me on if I hadn't done that. You was like,
Oh
I
yes, I
only
would have.
do. But
No, it's kind of an ego thing to say I'm a New York Times best-selling author, or I'm a Wall Street Journal best-selling author, or a USA Today best-selling author. I mean, I wouldn't say no to that. I would love to have a book that's on the New York Times bestseller list, but it is
New
a
York
little
Times is
a little
hard.
bit.
Amazon bestseller, not as
Yeah,
hard. Just
no,
to give
that's
you a perspective,
easy
I
peasy, really.
at this and at the same just so people know the real numbers. For a few days, I was number 7 in the health category on Amazon, and I was and all it took was 1,500 books a day to get to that level. So it's not 10,000 books. It's not 50,000 books. It won't last. I mean, I'm down at 20. My position is now like 20,000, but for that brief shining moment, I pushed all the way up, and I got a screen grab of it. So I get validation. But you want to be able to say Amazon and Wall Street Journal bestseller if you can. It's better than not being able to say it.
Right.
It's just one more enhancement of the brand. And then, man, do you need people to review the book? You need those, just like, it's a whole world that needs reviews, but you need people to give you good, solid reviews, because that's what they're going to look. They're going to look and say, 5-star reviews, I'm interested. Because if they get 3 stars, it's over with
Right, but
everything,
if
not
it's
just your book.
5.0 stars on average and you have whatever 100 reviews, that looks fake. So that's actually too perfect. Somewhere in the sweet spot of 4.3 to 4.8 or something like that is what I've read.
You need
Is
detractors to make it credible. Yes.
yeah.
And
Oh,
I
and
tell
speaking of
dentists the same thing.
detractors,
Yeah. Oh,
detractors on your competitors' books before you write your book are fantastic competitive intel because I learned this from Jay Abraham. It's like if
ah,
you're going to write a book on a topic, go to your direct competitors who've already written books and go to the 1-star reviews. You're going to learn a ton about what didn't work and what to address in your book. It's great advice.
Jay is a clever guy. I know him well, and he and I are always trying to figure out how to do something together, and it never happens because he's a man with a million ideas, and
Yeah,
we just haven't set it up yet. But
I know
that's
how that
brilliant
goes, but
but that's market research, right? Understand what the marketplace is missing. That's what that's doing.
yeah,
Where did somebody drop the ball? That's where you want to step in and be better.
yes. And you mentioned airport bookstores earlier. Did you pay to have your book uh, featured,
I can't.
presented?
I'm self-published, so I am not in bookstores at all.
So you
That's
can't
the
get a
big challenge
self-published
of being
book at any
self-published.
bookstore. Really?
No,
Hmm.
no, you can
Okay.
get in some of the local bookstores. You can do it, and that's kind of fun, but it doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
You'll sell 50 books that way.
If you
And
did have a
book
publisher,
readings, yeah, a publisher gets behind it and pushes the book out. But if it doesn't get traction, they will abandon you in an instant if your book doesn't take off. They are on to the next one,
hmm.
and
Do you
it's
happen to
very
know how
hard.
much it costs to do the whole featured book at the airport bookstores thing?
No, no, that was not
I,
freely given
I
information.
have a feeling that's a six-figure investment.
Yeah, because the bookstores are all changed. It's all chains. It's Hudson Books, and then there's probably 5 chains all over the country that
Yeah.
are the bookstore that are the airport bookstores. So uh, that's how you make the deal.
Yeah. Yeah. So, if you wanted to do collaborations with influencers, where would you start in order to make that happen? To get the right influencers to do strategic and really remarkable campaigns, and not just, hey, I'm here with my buddy, blah blah blah, or whatever. So what's your advice there?
I think what you have to do is support them. If it's an influencer, you want to find a way, any way you can, to add value to them and their audience in some way. And then you have to find a way to make yourself unique in the marketplace so that somebody pays attention and says this person is somebody we should be involved in. This is because the the whole world is looking for content. But they're looking for good content. They're looking for interesting content. And don't think that just because like just because I talk well, I don't think that's enough. I gotta find a way to bring something much more. It, it, the word was I was going for was extravagant, but it's gotta have some unique appeal that people want to share it. And there's no such thing as figuring out how to create a viral video. It doesn't. There's all these people that will believe me. You can spend a lot of money paying people who say we'll create a viral video, but there's a weird magic that just happens. So you just keep trying stuff. You just keep putting as interesting a thing, push your envelope of boldness to get to make yourself in a more heightened way more interesting, your content more interesting, more zeroed in on what a lot of people care about. It's not going to be
Yeah.
easy because there's a lot of people doing it. And of course, we're hearing about all these influencers who are making $1 million a year just teaching people how to put on makeup or something. So we think, oh well, that's what I want to do. But it all started with nothing. It's like this little line, and then all of a sudden it starts to get shared, which gets more shared, which gets more shared. But you pay your dues in the first few years actually of
Yeah.
becoming noticed.
I
And
had
most
Daniel Harmon.
podcasters give up in 6 months. That's the other thing. There's 3.5 million podcasts, but there's probably 50,000 a month that are giving up because they ran out of guests, or they ran out of interesting things to say, or they never got any followers.
Mhm. Yeah, pod faded. But I had Daniel Harmon on to talk about viral videos, and I remember hearing him speak at Traffic and Conversion Summit. This was prior to having him on my podcast, and him saying essentially that there is no formula for a viral video, and don't even try to aim for it, even though they've produced some of the biggest viral commercials online. So, like the Squatty Potty and um, Poopery, and like all the big viral commercials, they produced those. Harmon Brothers did, and yet he's saying, yeah, it's not something to aim for. It's kind of
Yeah, well, think
a
about how
mirage.
many Super Bowl commercials don't work. You're sitting there saying, "Okay, this is your opportunity to uh, get your this massive audience fixated on your product in a unique way," and they fail completely. I've watched Super Bowl commercials and say, I don't even understand what the product is at the end of it. So it's hard, uh, and then there's other ones that are just perfect. And there's other ones that are perfect, but they don't sell anything. That they go, that was so entertaining. But I don't know if it was for Budweiser or Coors. I can't remember.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. There's an example of a campaign that didn't have that viral production value, but it just seemed to flood the market at the right moment and set some records. And the campaign I'm thinking of is Justin Bieber in the run up to the release of his song "What Do You Mean." So that hit single did way better, broke some records. If it had just been released in a regular fashion, it would have, I'm sure, done pretty well. But it did phenomenal, and as I said, broke records that hadn't been beaten since the Beatles or something. It was really impressive. I actually learned this from Ken Rutkowski, from the founder of metal. He shared this campaign on one of the Metal Saturdays. It was so cool. So the idea here was, let's get a bunch of Justin's buddies who are famous celebrities and major influencers to put out a short video or at least a photo on Instagram or other social platforms, holding up a sign, just a piece of paper that said, what, like hashtag what do you mean, and a countdown day, so day 28, day 3, day 1, right? And these would release over the course of the 30 days.
So simple, right? It just sounds, it's not so simple and so easy to execute, but somebody's got to come up with it, and you got to know some famous people.
Yeah, people like Ellen, like Ed Sheeran, they all were part of this campaign. Brilliant.
And
Just brilliant.
If it takes them a minute to do, they'll do it.
Yeah, I remember Ed Sheeran's video. It was just so kind of nonchalant, impromptu. He had his guitar and he was just playing something that didn't sound anything like the song, but had "What Do You Mean" in it, and it was just being fun and lighthearted about it. And yeah, that was one of the videos that helped build up all the momentum. It's really clever.
Yeah, I'm launching my podcast in a couple of weeks. I'm actually starting to record it. I won't launch it till I have a few episodes. But in my book, in Super Bold, I have exercises that people do to gradually build their boldness. And it could be something simple like just talking to a stranger every day and, complimenting them. Or depending on where you're at, it could be a higher and higher level, depending on how bold you are. So I'm making every guest that I come on do one of the boldness exercises that is a challenge for them to do, and have somebody video it so that I can make it part of the podcast. And then we're going to talk about how it felt to move into their discomfort zone, and what they discovered again about themselves. And, most of the people I'm going to have on are going to be pretty bold people, but it's going to be fun to hear them say, Fred made me panhandle for a half an hour, and it was much more challenging, but I made like $38.50.
That reminds me of a challenge I had to do as part of being in Neil Strauss's secret society, which wasn't so secret. It had a website. It's called The Society. And one of the intensives was like really get outside your comfort zone, follow these different clues, do these challenges, and don't get essentially abducted by these kind of bounty hunters who were after you. So it was this big challenge, and it was to use your skills that you'd learned earlier in the intensive that weekend on survivalism. So he has a big book called Emergency, and it's all about survivalism.
Yes.
So that was amazing and very challenging. I'm an introvert, so it was very much outside my comfort zone. But my little team of 3 out of 20 different teams or so came in first place. That was pretty fun. And one of the hardest things to do was to go up to people and ask them for money. I'd never done that in my life before.
Yes, it's not easy,
and it's surprisingly easy. Like
it's not easy to get yourself to do, but it's really actually easy to do.
It's easy to get the money. Like I couldn't believe.
I mean, that's what I mean. It's easy to actually get money from people. Much easier than anybody would have ever imagined.
Yeah, that was wild. And there were people getting tased and getting hooded and handcuffed, and we had learned how to break out of zip ties and pick handcuff locks with well picks and things like that. So we were using all of our skills. That was pretty fun.
I love it.
Yeah,
Neil's a wild man.
yeah. And then there's this other big YouTuber. I forget her name, but she had this 100 Days of Fear challenge where she did something outside her comfort zone every day for 100 days and videoed it and created a huge following on her YouTube. This is, I don't know, maybe a decade ago. Do you know who I'm talking about?
I don't, but I know a couple of people have done similar sort of stuff because because they were shy. They had the challenge that I had growing up as well, and they just said this. I gotta force myself out of it. There was another guy, and I don't remember his name, but every day he went out and asked somebody if they would give him $100. So he wasn't just asking for money, and you the process of accepting the rejection, you are assuming that 99 out of 100 people are not going to give you $100. That's what you learn from it, is you don't die when that happens, because of course odds are they're not going to. But then you can go through life saying failures are just me getting better and finding the right person, whether it's
Yeah.
the right person to date or the right customer or whatever. It's just everything's a numbers game. But you can't get discouraged after 2 failures when it
Yeah.
takes 40 to get there.
You know what I think of this as? It's stress inoculation, essentially.
Yeah.
And yeah, you get numb to it. Then you're like, okay, it's like somebody calling you, I don't know, accusing you of having purple eyes or something. You think that's crazy, so you just ignore them. It doesn't get you flustered. Um,
Yeah, you realize why am I registering a complete stranger's opinion as something I care about? This is what bold people know. I talk about this in the book as well. As bold people have a very small group of people whose opinions really matter to them. Their family, their close friends, their mentors. The rest of it, everybody's at zero. It's like, and they say other people's opinions of me are none of my business, and they proceed on.
yeah.
And when you can let that go, it's one of the great releases in your life, is when you can stop worrying about what other people think about you.
Hmm. Yeah,
And
for
that's
sure.
and that's actually the nature. I was just listening to this, and I think it was Brene Brown that was talking about perfectionism is all about worrying about what other people will think. So the only way that you can protect yourself is somehow be perfect, look perfect, speak perfectly, launch a perfect business, whatever, because you're so worried about what other people are going to think.
Yeah,
The
so much of
greatest
our
gift you can
time
give yourself, yeah,
is
is
trying to look good in front of other people and not look bad.
yeah,
Yeah. Now, the person that did the 100 Days Without Fear challenge and did all the videos, it's Michelle Polar. I think she'd be amazing to have on your podcast when you launch that.
yeah.
She
I'm
did
going
a
to have to come
TEDx
up with
talk that was
something
great.
serious for her to do.
Yeah, right,
Uh,
right. But
yeah,
she's very inspiring. Now, I know you're doing some workshops on
yes.
that kind of dovetail with the book. Do you want to just share a quick rundown of what you're up to with these workshops?
Yeah. So I'm launching a 2-day super bold transformation workshop, which takes the content of the book and other exercises and stage techniques that I've been working with, and bringing 40 people together. We're actually renting out a comedy club so that we can have a stage to work with. And we're going to accelerate people's transformation to take them from wherever they are on the shy, bold spectrum and move them up rapidly, but then come away with the technique so that whenever they feel like they're about to hesitate and it's an important situation, an important opportunity, they break through. They know what to do. And that's a lot of what I teach in the book, is a very systematic way to just prepare yourself and act. because boldness is taking action. Confidence is you feel good about yourself in the situation, but boldness is doing stuff.
Yeah.
It's taking that confidence and going out there and acting and seeing what happens and discovering what else could happen.
So it's not like one of these crazy pickup artist challenge type weekends where they strap a dildo on the person's head and they make them stand out in a street corner and greet women who pass by over like in the next half hour. That's stress and
Yeah.
activation to the max. But you're talking about something that's a little easier, more
It's
palatable.
this isn't about picking up women. I mean, it takes a certain amount of boldness, but it's also that's manipulative behavior. This is so that you can chase your dreams. This is so you, when it matters, you are stepping up, you are speaking up, because that's what I want people to do, is not miss those key opportunities. And it may not be an opportunity for business or even a relationship. It could be that you have to give a eulogy, or you should be giving a eulogy for a parent or a close friend uh, or a mentor or somebody, and you're going to get one chance. And this is all through your life. There's going to be times where the window is going to open and close, and if you don't step up, that will gnaw at you forever, because you'll never get another bite at that apple. The opportunity will come and go. And I mention eulogies because a lot of people, they go, oh, I'm not a public speaker. And I just say, this isn't a presentation. This is you just getting up in front of everybody in this only chance you have to talk about what this person meant to you. And if you don't do it, and you watch other people do it, when I wasn't as confident as I am now, I would watch people do it, and then they would say, "Does anybody else want to speak?" And I would be waiting and to summon myself, and then they say, "All right, thank you." But I needed 5 minutes to get up the nerve to get up and speak. Now I get up and speak, and I do it everywhere in my life. If there's an opportunity, I'm going for it to see what happens. And if I embarrass myself publicly, that's okay.
Yep. Well, it's not the wallflowers who change the world.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So how does our listener or viewer attend your workshop?
Go to fredjoyal.com, Joyal. I'm Fred Joyal everywhere, Twitter and Instagram and Snapchat and Facebook,
TikTok?
LinkedIn. Yes, of course. I don't do anything on TikTok because I don't think it's going to move any books. But I'm a marketing guy, so I grabbed my name early.
Yeah.
But my website is where you can learn about the workshop. It's June 24th and 25th in Santa Monica. So, and it's very limited in attendance because we want it to be a concentrated group, and the space is fairly small on purpose. So, and it's not expensive. It's less than $800 to participate for 2 days. So, and you will be forever changed.
That's awesome. Well, Fred, you're doing good work out in the world. Congratulations with your success with the book, with workshops, and appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Stephan. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. And thank you, listener. Get out there and be bold, make a difference, and we'll catch you in the next episode. I'm your host, Stephan Spencer, signing off.